Cold open. Hook, there is a clock running right now. Inside hospitals. Inside insurance offices. Inside the pipes under your street. Inside the retirement account you haven't checked in years. Nobody can see it. Nobody sent you a notification. But it's ticking down, and in some cities, it has already hit zero. This isn't a prediction about the future. This is happening right now, in places most Americans drive past every single day without knowing it. Insurance companies are quietly refusing to cover entire zip codes. Hospitals are closing in towns that have no backup. Water systems built during the Truman administration are one hard freeze away from failure. And the program tens of millions of Americans are counting on for retirement has a number attached to it, a real year, not a maybe. By the end of this video, you're going to look at your own city differently. You're going to check your own numbers. Because these aren't 5 random problems. They're 5 countdown clocks, all running at once, and most people won't notice until the moment their own clock hits zero. Let's start with the one that's already further along than you think. Number 5. The retirement clock. Here's a number the government itself has published, sitting quietly in a report almost nobody reads. The trust fund that backs Social Security is projected to run short in the early 2030s. Not eventually. Not someday. A specific window, less than a decade out. If nothing changes before then, the program doesn't vanish, but the checks going out will shrink automatically, because the fund can only pay out what it takes in. For a retiree living on a fixed income, that's not an abstract policy footnote. That's the difference between paying rent and not. And here's the part that makes it worse. A huge share of American workers approaching retirement age have little to nothing saved outside of that check. Pensions mostly disappeared a generation ago. 401ks were supposed to replace them, but they only work if you had steady income to put into one, and millions of gig workers, hourly employees, and small business owners never had that luxury. So picture 2 clocks ticking at once. One is the government's fund, quietly shrinking on a government timeline. The other is personal, a savings account that was never built to begin with. Most people don't feel the collision coming until they're already retired and it's too late to do anything about it. And retirement is just the beginning. Because while that clock ticks in Washington, a completely different one is ticking in your mailbox, and it's moving even faster. Number 4. The insurance collapse in parts of Florida, Louisiana, and California. Something strange has been happening for the last few years. Homeowners are opening their renewal notice, and there isn't one. Not a price increase. A flat-out non-renewal. Their insurance company has simply decided the risk in their area is no longer worth taking. This isn't a handful of unlucky homes. Entire regions have been quietly reclassified by insurers as too expensive to cover, because of a rising pattern of wildfires, floods, and storms hitting harder and more often than the old models predicted. Some of the largest insurers in the country have pulled back from writing new policies in whole states. When private insurers leave, homeowners get pushed into state-backed, insurer of last resort programs. Plans that were only ever designed to be a small safety net, not the primary system. Those state plans are now carrying more risk than they were built for, which means the next major disaster doesn't just hurt homeowners. It can strain an entire state's finances. And a house without insurance isn't just a risk. In most cases, it's a house you legally cannot get a mortgage on. Which means for some families, the countdown isn't about losing their coverage. It's about losing the ability to buy or keep a home at all. But insurance only kicks in after something goes wrong. The next clock is about something failing quietly, every single day, whether disaster strikes or not. Number 3. The water clock. Underneath American cities right now sits a network of pipes, and a huge share of them were laid down between the 1880s and the 1950s. Cast iron. lead in many older service lines, never designed to last into a second century. You've probably seen the headlines from Flint, Michigan, or Jackson, Mississippi, cities where the water either became dangerous or simply stopped flowing reliably. Those weren't isolated disasters. They were early warnings. Water utility engineers have pointed to tens of thousands of miles of pipe across the country that are past or near the end of their intended lifespan, and replacing them properly would cost more than most cities can raise on their own. Meanwhile, out west, a different water clock is running. Massive underground aquifers, water that took thousands of years to accumulate, are being pumped out for farming and drinking water faster than rain and snowmelt can refill them. Some agricultural regions are already seeing wells run dry, forcing farms to drill deeper or shut down entirely. Two different water crises. One is about pipes falling apart underground. The other is about the water itself simply not being there anymore. And both are advancing on a timeline most residents never get told about, until the day the tap runs brown, or doesn't run at all. Now, water and insurance are slow, grinding problems. The next one moves faster than that, and it can turn into a 5-alarm emergency in a single night. Number 2. The healthcare cliff. Rural hospitals have been closing across the country at a pace that would alarm anyone who actually looked at the map. When one shuts down, the nearest emergency room for some residents doesn't move a few minutes away. It can move 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes more. At the same time, America is short on doctors, and the shortage is projected to get worse, not better, over the next decade, especially in primary care and in exactly the small towns that can least afford to lose another provider. Medical schools aren't producing physicians fast enough to replace the wave of doctors approaching retirement themselves. Layer on top of that an aging population. The same generation the retirement clock in number 5 is worried about is also the generation that needs the most medical care, right as the system meant to treat them is thinning out. Put those pieces together and you get something quietly terrifying. A heart attack, a stroke, a bad fall. The kind of emergency where minutes decide outcomes, happening in more and more places where the nearest help just isn't close anymore. This isn't a distant future risk. In some counties, it's already the reality tonight. Every clock so far has been about a system running down. The last one is different. It's the one clock that touches every single person watching this video, right now, whether you know it or not.
Number 1. The debt clock no one shows you. Not the national debt ticking away on a billboard in Times Square, the one in your own household. Consumer debt in America, credit cards, auto loans, medical bills, has been climbing to levels that outpace how fast people's paychecks are growing. Millions of Americans are carrying balances they're only paying the minimum on, which means the debt barely shrinks no matter how long they keep paying. Here's what makes this the final clock, the one that ties every other number together. It's the one that speeds up the moment any of the others go wrong. Lose your insurance in number 4, and a single storm can put you into debt overnight. Live somewhere the healthcare system in number 2 has thinned out, and one emergency room bill can wipe out years of savings. Reach retirement with the shortfall in number 5, and credit cards quietly become the bridge between a check that doesn't cover the bills and a life that still has expenses. That's the real story underneath all 5 of these numbers. They aren't 5 separate problems sitting side by side. They're connected, like dominoes standing an inch apart. Push one, and the rest don't fall someday, they fall now. And that's the part almost nobody is talking about. 5 clocks: retirement, insurance, water, healthcare, debt. All running quietly, all at once, in a country that mostly acts like none of them exist. So here's the question I want you to sit with, and I want you to actually answer it in the comments, not just scroll past it. Which one of these 5 clocks is already ticking closest to zero in your own life? Is it the insurance letter you're dreading, the number on your own retirement account, the bill you haven't opened yet? Because the people who come out ahead of this aren't the ones who panic, they're the ones who notice the clock before it hits zero. If this video showed you something you hadn't put together before, tell me which number hit you the hardest, and subscribe because we're going to keep pulling back the curtain on the things running out quietly right underneath everyone's feet. America isn't out of time yet, but nobody's going to ring a bell when it is.